It was a dark and snowy night. In fact, it was a dark and snowy Sunday night in January 1959. How do I know this nearly 60 years later? Bear with me. It was a Sunday night because my father, mother, my two older brothers, and I were sitting in our living room watching The Ed Sullivan Show. It was 1959 because there were two brothers there, not three, and my mother was not yet pregnant with the third one who came along in April of 1960. Also, prior to 1959, we did not have that slightly used 1952 International Harvester Farmall Super M tractor in our farm's inventory. You see, on that particular snowy evening, that particular tractor played an important role in the story I'm about to tell. Let me start again. It was a dark and snowy night, and there was a knock on the door. Evening knocks on our door were extremely rare in those days, even in good weather. We lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere on a one-lane dirt road, and we were the only family on that one-lane dirt road. My father, not at all happy to be receiving visitors on such a night, broadcast several unpleasant words to the rest of us as he got up to answer the door. Upon opening the door, my father found standing before him a snow-covered, shivering young man who quickly introduced himself as someone none of us had ever heard of before. Nevertheless, he quickly got to the point of his intrusion into our Sunday evening. "Please, sir," he begged meekly, "my car has slid into a ditch just a few hundred yards down the road. I had to leave my girlfriend there. Would you have a tractor you could pull me out with? I would gladly pay you for your trouble." My father at first grumbled something I would hesitate to repeat in mixed company, but remained civil enough to agree to go out on this rescue mission. However, he made his terms eloquently clear. "I want $5 or you can stay in that ditch and freeze your asses off." The young man sheepishly replied, "Of course, sir, whatever you want, but my wallet is in the car." Yes, that statement, as you might suspect, was an indication of trouble ahead, but in the stress of that moment, it went unheeded over my father's head. Also, you might think $5 wasn't much of a fee for going out on such an awful night. Well, 60 years ago, for some occupations, it was at least a day's pay, and not everyone carried that kind of cash around in their wallets. Facing all the circumstances and conditions, my father was not in a charitable mood. Well, moments later, rescuer and rescuee disappeared into the dark, into the snow, into the wind, and into the bone-chilling winter's night. We watched out the front window at the specter of headlights shining across the hood of the tractor, revealing a snowplow down, engaging the foot of snow before it, and rumbling down the road to a snowbound car somewhere beyond. My father could be seen grudgingly yet confidently seated at the helm of that Super M with the young stranger desperately hanging on the rear of the tractor. As this specter disappeared into the beautiful yet inhospitable scene of blowing snow, we all remained on station at the window, nervously awaiting the outcome of my father's mission of mercy. As I already mentioned, this sort of nightly visit was rare. It was also fraught with suspicion and possibly even danger. Not all strangers in the night were genuinely in need of assistance. Therefore, we waited, frozen in anticipation at that window until my father's safe return. 4 prayers lifted to heaven for the safe return and for the sight of a happy and relieved stranger with his girlfriend driving away to God knows where in any place but there. Half an hour later, our prayers were answered. Tractor and father, car with stranger and girlfriend came driving triumphantly up the road. Tractor and father turned up our driveway and then directly back into the shed. Car with stranger and girlfriend continued on up the road and, thankfully, out of our lives. Mission safely over. Or so it appeared. As my snow-covered father came back into the house, my mother greeted him with a cup of hot coffee, and my brothers and I greeted him with endless questions. Where was he stuck? Down by Marcy's Pond. Wow, that far? What kind of a car? A 56 Chevy. Did he really have a girlfriend in the car? Yeah, homely as hell. Did you get the $5? Not exactly. What? His three sons went silent, not understanding that answer. Then my mother revised the question. What do you mean by not exactly? While this interrogation was going on, my father had taken off his now soaked coat, hat, gloves, and boots, and had sat at the kitchen table with the cup of coffee. His family sat down with him at their own appointed places at that table, anxiously awaiting his explanation of not exactly. 60 years later, I still vividly remember the tale. Perhaps some of the details I've forgotten, and perhaps some I may have embellished. Perhaps the story isn't as close to the truth as it should be, but legends are born this way, and in the annals of my family's history, this story is considered legendary. Well, as best I can remember, the snow wasn't as bad as it looked from out our window that night. My father had no trouble getting down to where the stuck car was. He had it out of the ditch in minutes. The trouble began when he unhooked his chain from the car's front bumper and walked to the open window of the driver's side. The once meek young man was now an arrogant little bastard. "Screw you, you old fart," he barked at my father. "Are you that stupid to think I was actually going to pay you?" I have to pause here briefly to explain a couple of things before I can adequately continue telling this tale. You see, it's imperative that you understand a bit more about my father, Ralph John Score. He wasn't a tall man. You could say average height at best. He wasn't muscular. At best you might say stout. His appearance was far from imposing. Actually, to any stranger, he could come off as quite jovial, polite, and most accommodating. Unfortunately for the uninformed, as his family, friends, and neighbors knew better, there was a very, very dark side to the man. He had a very hot and very short temper. He did not have a short fuse. He did not have a fuse at all. Instead, he had a hair trigger that could be pulled by a breeze. He also had a special talent. In all the 53 years I knew him, and in all the 26 years he preceded me, it was a rare occasion when he ever got into fisticuffs with anyone. He never had to. This talent of his was the ability to reduce any grown man, regardless of size or strength, into a whimpering pile of mush simply by telling him off. He was a master of browbeating rebuke. He knew how to get loud, very loud. He knew how to be abrupt and unpredictable. He knew how to instantly choose the appropriate words for any person or any situation, and he knew how to make it mercilessly personal. With his talent, I had no doubt he was the envy of demons. Now, there is another important element to this story I must also describe. That being the tractor, that 1952 International Harvester Farmall Super M. At 899 RPMs, it produced 47.07 belt horsepower and 44.23 horsepower at the drawbar. It had a wheelbase of 89.25 inches and weighed 5,603 pounds. Wheel weights added another 1,000 pounds. It had independent brakes on each rear wheel. It had a 5-speed standard transmission, mechanical steering, and a narrow front-end arrangement of the front wheels. My fellow tractor aficionados need no explanation of this jargon. The rest of you who don't know a tractor from a fidget spinner need only know that what I just described indicates this was a fairly beefy tractor in its day and had a unique ability important to the outcome of this story. Because of the geometry of its front wheels, its type of steering, and its independent rear wheel brakes, it could turn sharply and almost instantly within its own length under the control of an experienced operator. Ralph Score had years of such experience. Now, back to the story. Once my father realized he was officially being had, the hair trigger was pulled. However, in order to carry out his plan of action, which instantly came to mind. He bit his tongue and intentionally remained civil, for the moment. Well, almost civil. His tone was civil, but his choice of words sort of indicated what was about to happen. "All right, punk, have it your way." He then quickly unhooked the tow chain from the car's front bumper and climbed back up onto the tractor. Here it comes. The fresh fallen snow was still light and fluffy, causing very little resistance to movement through it. Beneath the snow was a hard, frozen smooth roadway, perfect conditions for that plan of action about to be engaged. Ralph's Gore throttled up to that full 899 RPMs, dropped the transmission into third gear, turned the front wheels all the way to the right, locked the brake on the right drive wheel, and let out the clutch. The Super M growled, jumped a bit, and instantly turned 180 degrees on itself. Within 3 seconds, the front and rear of the tractor had swapped positions, and the snowplow was now up against the right-hand corner of the car's front bumper. The experienced operator deftly slowed the tractor at the last instant so that it gently pushed the car back into the ditch. This action enraged the young punk stranger, who now decided to get out of the car and duke it out with that stupid farmer. However, that stupid farmer got to the half-open door first and slammed it closed, pushing the fool back into the car. Also, unfortunately for him, the car door window was still open, allowing my father to reach in, grab him by the collar, and pull his head back out. With nose touching nose, that envy of demons was now fully charged and unleashed. Now listen carefully, you no-good, worthless piece of contraband. Obviously, I'm toning down the profanities. Unless you and that thing you're with want to freeze to death here tonight, it's now going to cost you $10, and I want it now. My father pushed the now pale white head back into the car, and through the open window he suddenly smelled a strong whiff of urine as both occupants of the car lost control of themselves. The wallet was quickly found as nervous fingers fumbled through it to produce all the cash that could be found. It was quickly handed to my father, and the window quickly rolled up. At that point, my father leisurely turned the tractor around once more, backed up to the car, rehooked the chain, and pulled the car out of the ditch. Triumphantly, he returned that International Harvester Farmall Super M to the shed. The car and its young man, punk, stranger, and companion sheepishly drove on out of sight, never to be seen on our road again. After the debriefing my father gave us, we excitedly asked to see the $10 bill he collected. Instead, he pulled out 2 bills, both with a portrait of Andrew Jackson. "Not a bad haul for a half hour's work," he chuckled. Everyone involved with this incident learned something that night. The Score family learned not everyone are who they seem. The young couple in that car learned that as well. They also learned, to their frightened dismay, they chose the wrong night to go down Mills Road just outside of Walden, New York. They chose the wrong farmer to pull a stupid stunt with, and one foolish young man knocked on the wrong door.